Again, thank you to this wonderful school. We arrived early in the morning for our Support Music Coalition Forums. We take over a little bit. We bring in some technology from the bus, but we're really grateful for all the help and support that we've had to have these conversations in communities around the country. And for those of you that are joining us here in the choir room, I believe it is a choir room, right? The choir room here at Martin Luther King, and all the folks that are joining us on the web. And some of you maybe have joined us for all of our forums. This is our 5th forum, and our final forum is of this fall beta test to see if this is a good experience for the coalition and for all of you in your communities. Speaking just for myself, it's been a remarkable experience to be in so many diverse communities, to speak with teachers, students, community leaders, central office people, city governments, members of the press, and the spirit and the desire for music and arts education for every child is strong and it's alive, but the challenges remain to bring it into place and to assure that it has its rightful place in the core curriculum. And at the Namm Foundation and the Support Music Coalition, we do not do this work alone. We do it in partners, and again acknowledging our important partners for today here in Philadelphia, the Pennsylvania Music Education Association, the Membership Association in the state for all the music teachers in this working hard every day in the state of Pennsylvania, the Education Policy and Leadership Center, which is doing important work and its collaboration with the state legislature and working on education policy and equity issues, and our wonderful long-term friends at the VH1 Save the Music Foundation that have for a long time been connected to Namm and Namm its members. And honestly, we can't take a step in this direction without having you by our side. We really are grateful. And also to acknowledge the National Association for Music Education, which is a partner and collaborator in the Support Music Coalition. Now, the Support Music Coalition, all of you are encouraged to participate and become an affiliate, join our listserv, catch our assets and our resources online. Is a national effort uniting people who care about music education in schools. And we want to provide tools, resource, and a network, and at least once a month, and for the last couple of weeks, it's been twice or 3 times a week, we've been meeting either via a conference call or on the web, via webcast or a webinar, to share the network of advocates around the country and to share their stories and to share their best practice of advocacy. Because one idea that's working to keep music education strong in one community could inspire a whole action in another community. And that's been the sort of the pollination experience of the coalition these last 10 years. And as we go forward into our next decade, we really want to bring this energy to scale. And to scale means that in the 16,000 school districts in America, there are strong and thriving programs and people that support them. And I think we're going to hear a lot about that type of support here in Philadelphia. And to hear those young men play in a string quartet and the level of intelligence, intensity, musical sensitivity it takes to play at that level, Virginia, you're right, Philadelphia is full of music. And it has a rich music learning tradition that we want to continue for a long time. We're going to turn right to our panel, and I'm going to join you here. We're going to have a round-robin discussion. We want to make it lively. We want to make it interactive. We encourage you to be spontaneous. But as I do, I just want to set the stage for when the opportunity to come to Philadelphia came to us. It was so important that we make a journey here and be part of this discussion with the community. And because what happened here in the spring, this last spring, just a few months ago, was really a national story. And it was a story that reached not only the state of Pennsylvania, but really reached all of us around the country with a lot of concerns. So just to give you a little background, the city of Philadelphia, the school district of Philadelphia has been fighting budget shortfalls for many, many years. And the debt was increasing and becoming a serious burden. So And then this is not only specific for Philadelphia. This is a challenge faced by many school districts of large and small sizes. So it was just sort of the tip of the iceberg. We were seeing something happening in Philadelphia, that there was the same pressures happening in many schools around the country. A new superintendent, Dr. William Haidt, put forth a budget scenario that, that really stripped services bare for the school district, eliminating counselors, school nurses, and essentially they prepared a budget for funding to cover one principal, one teacher for every 33 students in grade 4 to 12, and one teacher for every 30 students in grades K through 3. So in other words, it was just sort of like, you know, get out the math, do the grid, organize it from the financial perspectives. Funding was offered also to support security and a part-time nurse for the district. No other positions at schools were funded, including secretaries, counselors, or music teachers. But he did make a pledge. He made a pledge that over time, if things got better and their additional funding was secured, that they would take a look at bringing back some of those services. So you would say the spirit was willing, but the reality was overwhelming. And as we've said in some other communities, really difficult decisions were made by really good people. So as of June 21st, the budget took effect, and all the non-budgeted positions were pink-slipped, you would say, or were laid off, some of which are on our panel today, lost their positions. The music teachers, we are in a school, don't forget. The music teachers staged a farewell concert on the last day of their contracts. The music teachers, Philadelphia orchestra musicians, students all played a concert at the district offices before the meeting, sort of their version of the farewell concert. Dr. Haidt, the principal, superintendent, excuse me, spoke at the event and promised that day that music would be one of the first things to be returned to the budget upon receipt of additional funds. Over the summer, a relatively small amount of additional funds were received, and Dr. Haidt made good on his promise, rehiring all 66 itinerant instrumental music teachers that had been serving the district. Most of the lost positions outside of music are still missing in the schools, something that we'd say we would not support either. I mean, the fact that there's still vital services are not possible. But the fact that the community responded, Dr. Haidt made a promise, the positions were brought back, and the opportunity for us to come and, in essence, celebrate that, to put a kind of a, you know, a support and a celebratory message around that, not that this was achieved by the community, and a superintendent that, though I've not met Dr. Haidt, must at base really see the value of this moving down through his students in the school district. So let me, our panel will have to pass the mics around. You're all teachers, you're all experienced in front of people. That should not be a problem for us. So now that I've kind of outlined this Uber challenge that happened in the last 6 months, let me toss the first question to all of you. In addition to the reality of the just straight funding, right? I mean, the funding, and that this is something that can be shared across the country in many districts. What are some quote-unquote other challenges, and how have you overcome them, both individually in your classroom, part of the community, as a supporter funder, that maybe could help understand how have you achieved the stability to keep this tradition moving forward? Virginia was talking about what was here in the 50s, right? So, in other words, rocky things come, resources are pulled, but somehow we're sitting here listening to that string quartet. You know, how have we overcome the challenges? Who would like to start? Frank, in your current capacity?
I'm going to start by deferring to Jay, because my answer would be fantastic teachers is how we've been able to overcome a lot of it. And folks that have been willing to go above and beyond many of the calls of duty and what we've asked them to do. And at no cost would they let the kids not experience music in their classroom. So I'm gonna let Jay open with a little bit of what he's done. He's been really resourceful.
I think a lot of coming to find a solution is just your mentality when you enter the district. Here you are entering a challenging district with, we have a $100 budget, and I get $100 for 6 schools that I teach in, and you have to be positive when you walk in, and all the teachers have to be positive and do the best with what you have. And for me, I mean, the bucket drumming thing, I did it more out of necessity, because here I am with a school with no instruments. I still have to teach music, and I'm going to do my best with it, but I'm going to take buckets, and I'm still going to try and teach all the standards and everything. Ideally, yes, we should have all the instruments and everything, and have the bucket drumming thing as a supplement, but I think a lot of it just comes to keeping a positive approach to doing the best that you can. And I think especially for new teachers, you have to realize that music, it's more than just teaching music. It's more than just teaching the notes, teaching the C scale and teaching the technique and teaching the rudiments. It's a bigger picture. I feel like in education, it's almost like we're walking down Broad Street in Philadelphia with a big magnifying glass to our eyeballs. So instead of looking at the big picture, we're focusing on these little things, focusing on trying to improve math scores, trying to improve literacy scores. And the ultimate goal of education, in my opinion, is not to get kids to be really good at the PSSAs or to be really good at geometry or trigonometry. Although that stuff is important, I think we need to step back and look at the bigger picture and realize that the goal of education is to get kids to function in society successfully. So we need kids to graduate middle school, go to high school, and then after high school, have the life skills to function in society, whether that means going to college or going to find a job somewhere. And music does all those things. Music cultivates all those life skills necessary to function in society.
So let's just get this straight. You have 6 schools, and you have $100 per year to spend on all 6 schools. So you must be supplementing some of this with your own used sticks that are in the back of your
definitely
drum kit or something. Or
I think you can either sit there and say, I'm not going to pay anything out of pocket, or you can have a heart and look at these programs. And of course I want to spend money to get my programs functioning. Of course if I have a student living out of a homeless shelter who can't afford their own drumsticks, I'm going to buy them drumsticks.
Right, right. And this is where I know VH1 has been helpful. This is where so many of our Namm members have been generous and helpful to move these programs forward. So we'll be sure to post a YouTube of one of the bucket drum sessions. And Frank, I love your reaction too. What happens in these bucket drums? Not only bucket drum learning, not only to the students, but to the teachers who see their students having this experience.
It's almost a change of a culture in the school. During our rehearsals, I mean, you can't help but to hear the bucket drumming going on in the auditorium, and come concert time, I mean, it's huge seeing that image of all the students on stage with all the bucket drums, all the Home Depot bucket drums. Yes,
that's
we do.
Really clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it spreads like a wildfire. I mean, the kids are into it. The elementary kids love it. All the parents love it. All the teachers love it. And it's just a wonderful way to get kids improvising on a bucket, get them performing on a bucket on something, and getting the community to also recognize that. And it's also a connection between what's going on in the classroom and what's going on in the community.
Well, it's on the street.
Right. You see it on Broad Street. You see it in the SEPTA stations. You see it in New York City all the time. I mean, it's a connection between what happens in these 4 walls and what happens outside those 4 walls.
And I have to say, having seen this experience with the guide of a high-quality teacher, and you're absolutely right, a high-quality teacher is the key to everything that we want students to experience. You think that you're hearing a very, very sophisticated percussion ensemble because of the knowledge of how the different things can be done with the bucket, and you have 40 kids on it, and you hear timbres, you hear colors, you hear polyphony. It's just pretty remarkable. Beth, you're going to add something to that.
Yes. The other thing that we can't forget is that students make a choice every day whether or not to come to school. And the exciting thing that I've seen since I've been working at UArts and really learned about the School District of Philadelphia, the rich music education program, is that we provide a legitimate and authentic reason for kids to come to school every day, because there's the teacher and also that musical experience that helps them to make that choice to say, this is exciting, this is worthwhile, I'm going to school today. I know I need to learn the basics, but I often wonder too how much of what these music teachers provide truly is what generates that excitement and engagement for a child to choose to come to school every day. How does that support and help in fighting dropout rates, student retention, and all of those other issues? You know, when they have something to be excited about, not, you know, the teacher, the program, the music, and what they get to do and the feelings that are generated for them by having the opportunity to be creative and expressive, that's another huge piece of the puzzle in terms of how we contribute to this community and this school district in Philadelphia.
We have some data about retention and graduation rates. We quite frankly need more. And you know, we would love to have a conversation with the Philadelphia School District UArts to see if there's a way that we could collect some of that data on the music students. Frank, you're going to offer something.
A few things. I feel like Elizabeth and Jay just kind of really captured what I was going to say. And the two big roles that I charge the music teachers with is engaging students and building culture in your school. And when you can do those two things, because while Jay doesn't have to worry about the test scores, I'm in the office with the assistant superintendents and they are worried about the test scores. And so we have that big picture conversation. And so we really need to validate how we're driving those test scores simply in the easiest function by getting kids to come to school, by getting kids to stay in class, by sending the kid back to class, because if they don't, we won't let them have that lesson today, or, you know, using that as an incentive and building those programs. So once you have those kids in and they're hooked, then the big piece that comes out of that is building culture, not only within the school community, because you really can change the walls of a school just by having sounds going and students performing at ensembles, kids at events when guests come in. It's a big piece to put the school on the map and help do some PR. But it really also extends to the community, and that's a lot of what we've been working on now. And you know, to go back to your original question around how do we do it, we have some fantastic resources and community partners that are all on the same mission of promoting music education and providing for kids. So we have to look from school to school individually. You know, the kids at Kappa need different things than the kids here at King, and what are we doing, and which partners are right there in the neighborhood. And it extends to some of our partners that do juvenile justice work and some of our hardest kids and some of our toughest kids, but they go into programs and they're exposing them to music, and we're realizing that's the hook. So making sure that as the school we have the responsibility of providing those programs during the day and being able to keep them there, building after school programs, keeping them in those peak times after school where the most problems occur for students in the inner city. So it's really, it becomes a community effort, and it really, the building of culture sums up how we have to do it all together.
You know, the data, we can't underemphasize the importance of the data. Now you're sitting in the central office where the end game there is all about the data. And you know, I think that we can be more resourceful in actually collecting the data of our service, the kids that we're serving, and trying to say, well, you know, I have that kid in class all the time. He's not going to your class. You know, I think that, you know, it starts with that, but then you really need to build a system throughout the district where this data is sort of collected.
Sure, and I've actually had the privilege of sitting in some of those conversations. Step one just being using digital technology, using what's available now, and starting to put systems together where we're doing exactly what we've been doing, but working within the different offices so that the information communicates. And I had that experience at the school level as well, just using our attendance management system to see which kids were cutting class. And you know, what we thought might be a school-wide cutting problem when we looked at the data was a 5 or 6 kids problem. And we were hearing teachers saying these kids are cutting, they're cutting, they're cutting. We looked at these 6 kids that they're referring to by these kids. So you're able to really focus your initiatives instead of spending all this time and doing professional development on how to get kids in the class on time. You really can do interventions with those specific kids, and the data tells you where the problems are, and then also tells you where the successes are. And when you have those successes, it's really easy to sell partnerships and bring people in, and people want to help out. And when you say we've done a little bit, and this is what the product has been, if we had a little bit more, we can do this much more. So the data piece is huge, and it's something that we definitely as a district are looking at how we can.
That's great, really important. A few years ago, the head of the National School Boards Association said to me, you know, music education, arts education is so important, but the reality is school districts are not going to be able to do it alone, at least for a while, you know, and that you talked about community partnerships. is coming in. And another conversation we've had with folks in various communities is sometimes these partnerships are just starting, and it's happened because of a crisis in the school and other resources aligned, not only for advocacy, but sometimes for services. Virginia and Paul, I'd love to hear your perspective about the challenges and how you've overcome them relative to creating access opportunity here in Philadelphia. Paul is a really important partner, VH1.
Well, VH1, Save the Music Foundation, of course, partners with school districts all across the country to restore their instrumental music education programs. And I would say that one of the challenges we face, it's a constant re-education process, reminding people about the importance of music as an integral part of comprehensive education. I can't tell you the number of times where we have gone into a district and restored a good number of the music programs, only to have some new leadership come into the district and not see music as important, as an important piece of comprehensive education. So it's a constant re-education. That's one of the challenges that we face.
And we have to stay at that because sometimes we feel like, do I have to explain again why it's important? I mean, it is, we get maybe advocacy tired or advocacy weary or, but we have to sort of put that on as our professional suit. We have to just sort of go, yes, we have a new administration or we have a new group of leadership here and we have to explain it again. But you come in with an important lever here because if they sort of don't understand, right? Can you tell us more about that? Have you had some challenging episodes with communities? Don't name them.
Well, I won't name it, but we've had some challenges, yes. And what we do is we provide schools with grants of music instruments. And we ask that they partner with us by providing for a certified music educator, making music a part of the core curriculum so it's a part of the school day so that every student has access to that program. And if at any time the school falls out of compliance, the teacher is eliminated, the foundation does reserve the right to pull its grant of instruments. Now that's a last resort, and we have very rarely exercised that right. In those cases where we have pulled the instruments, stored them locally, while we continue to work with the district to say, how can we get you back into compliance so we can return those instruments to your schools, and we've done that.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like a little bit of a leaning in around what are the shared values for what's best for children, but we have to implement them.
Right.
And you're saying, these are the standards on our side for our donation. What are the standards on your side for the donation? And we really, encourage our partners around the country to look at kind of your model. It has to be a shared commitment.
It has to be a partnership if that program is going to be sustained.
Yeah, great. Virginia, 40 years, Philadelphia music teacher, so invested in this community, seen so many things over the years.
Well, first of all, I have to thank VH1 Save the Music, because under certain superintendents, when the threat of cutting the music supervisor position or cutting music teachers, they were always at the forefront, coming to the School Reform Commission, speaking on behalf of music education, the value of music education. So without their support and our community partners that are out here in the audience, we would not be sitting here today talking about the strong music program that exists in the school district. So
you no longer have the floor at the central office, but without all that support, it could even have slipped more, is what you're really saying.
Well, as I said earlier, Philadelphia is such a rich cultural city where our leaders that are now in Philadelphia, City Council, the leaders in Philadelphia were students in the public schools. They participated, I would say 90% were a part of All City and their rich cultural experiences in music education. So the leaders of Philadelphia, they take with them that great positive experience, and they want it also for the children of Philadelphia, because without Without music education, without exposing all children to quality music education, how can our arts community survive, and how can actually the citizens of Philadelphia thrive without that experience?
So since that generation is now in positions of influence, I would say all those people should be conducting an elementary ensemble, a high school ensemble, a bee and a bucket drum in the next year.
That would be great.
Right? In other words, you have a passing of a generation.
Yes.
That needs to be, Frank, I charge you with the head of the music pro. But you know, it's part of the reality. We are all dealing with sort of that generation that had a lot of access to music education. It was really, you know, classroom teachers had to play piano to be certified. It was a different era in terms of how teachers were prepared. But now, how do we then transfer that energy? And if they are the leaders of this community, they can create that whole tradition for the next. And that's what can be harnessed, right? That's the energy that can be harnessed to do it. Virginia, anything else? You speak with such passion about the work of this community. How many teachers did you work with in all those years, and what are some highlights that you remember?
Okay.
You talk about All City. This is when all the high schools would come together to form festival bands or orchestras, or tell us more about that.
At the Great Kimmel Center, we have the All City Choir made of 250 students citywide in high school. Orchestra, about 120 students, and then the All City Band, about 100 students. That tradition, that legacy, started in the over 75 years ago, and we have tried to continue that tradition. And when the money started, when we started losing funding, folks in the community, they were part of All City. They said, we have to keep this tradition going on. This is what, when I walk into schools, students, oh, she's All City. That's what they remember. And that experience, and now with the partnership with the Philadelphia Orchestra, world class. We're in a city where there's a world class orchestra, and we're so fortunate that the conductor of the All City Orchestra is also the principal timpanist, and he's made possible for our students to receive lessons from Philadelphia Orchestra members working with our certified teachers, and also helping to provide instruments. We have students that are now going into conservatories, Eastman Conservatory, Oberlin, and that started in the public school with a certified music teacher, and continuing that sequential program all the way up through high school.
So this All City program still is continuing.
Yes.
And Frank, do you have goals and visions for it too?
Yeah, the fundraising goal is $80,000. So if anybody would like to contribute, we can take a check. Yeah, we certainly. My goal and vision coming in was to not back up on anything. So everything that we've had will continue. And so we're already in meetings. The committee will be convening next week to choose the repertoire. We've met with some folks that are going to help lead the fundraising efforts, and it's a big task, it's a big challenge, but it's been the pinnacle of our program for so many years that it's something that it's a non-negotiable. It'll happen, and there's been many years where it's been the very last second where we get that last extra contribution, and we've got some different ideas that we're going to try to build some funding that will be sustainable, so we're not always chasing it. But
and you do have 75 years on your side,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is our precious things, right? Precious things that we have to remember what we're working for. And, you know, children come together in those contexts and their lives are changed, right? I mean, they want to become a city council person after that, right? Or go on to become a leader of your community.
I want to say music definitely changes lives. Music, especially in poverty areas, underserved neighborhoods, music can save a life. 20 years ago, I mentored a student in middle school. We were thankful we had a VH1 keyboard lab at that time, so I'll put a plug in for the VH1 keyboard lab. And then partnerships with Temple University. Student was able to, after school, go to Temple and practice. Finally, the community said, hey, this student is playing Rachmaninoff by ear. They gave him a baby grand piano. that student was also able to go to Settlement Music School lessons for $1, and then went to major and received 3 degrees in music. He had no, I said, what do you want to do with your music? Oh, I just want to play well. I said, well, you know, you can make this your life. And now he's a conductor. He just was a finalist in Florence, Italy, in an international conducting competition. It takes building relationships. It just doesn't happen in school. It starts in school. It starts in that elementary school general vocal music teacher. And it mushrooms and continues to grow with outside partnerships, and to continue to mentor those students and help them along, because many of our students come from poverty and have no clue as to how to maneuver the educational process and to further their career, and to that music, hey, music can be your lifelong career or something that will be part of your life forever.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Spoken with such understanding and conviction. Thank you so much. So let's go just take a little bit of a dive into something nitty gritty, and then maybe we'll come back up to, you know, end with more personal, inspirational. Are we, you know, all of you have so much experience here, looking at music education from so many perspectives. Are we moving the needle so music education is less marginalized in the curriculum? I was in a school just earlier in the week, and they said, we're so fed up that we're still called an elective. How do we just get rid of that label? If we could get rid of that label, it would help my job and my advocacy in my community so much if I just wasn't called an elective. Where in the federal government, the arts are designated a core academic subject. So, you know, as comfortable as you would feel, you know, talking, have we moved the needle? Are we still sort of in fear of being marginalized as a subject? And will we always just have to go in and face those challenges for time, for resources, for attention as a core academic subject? Who's going to jump in? Frank?
I'm happy to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fully honest, I don't think we have moved the needle much. I think if anything, it might even have gone the other way, because if you look at what's happening in education across the board, just the approach to curriculum, the different schools that are popping up, the proficiency-based, the mastery models, and different things, that it's kind of become a bigger picture question mark of how everything fits in. And STEM is the big initiative now, and then we've added STEAM, so it's always kind of an afterthought. And I think on the advocacy end, for me, it always comes back to those core things about, you know, how are we getting, what are we doing for kids that is equally important, that's going to prepare them for life, and as Jay talked about, you know, prepare them and educate them in general. So I think on an advocacy side, we haven't gotten that much further along. I think what's interesting is and I always bring it back to culture, because when we start with the kids, we have to look at where they're at and, you know, meet them where they're at. So as music educators, for a lot of us, that means listening to music we're not comfortable with, or engaging in technology that we're not familiar with. So I think the upside of it is we can really kind of blend in a little bit more. I know in my last round of work at School of the Future, I really collaborated with the computer science department, and, you know, we kind of bridged computer science and media arts to where we were all just teaching kids how to function in society. And the kids today are so well equipped, and they have so much access to so many things, that you kind of have this mini renaissance happening, that a kid with a MacBook is doing art and becoming a graphic designer and making beats and doing all these things. So I think there's great opportunity to really look at how we can support that. And I think as music educators, we have to be aware of what's happening in education in general, and the models that are coming in, and be really prepared to say, okay, the district's going to open a school with this new model. How can we jump right in there and tell them how music should look in that particular instance?
So we have to lead.
Very much.
Lead.
Very much.
Yeah.
But I think too that music education will always be that grassroots effort. That when you can show as that musician educator in that school community your value, and beyond the value of you, the value of your program and how it's impacting kids, that's step one. Because if your principal or your administrator doesn't understand the value of what you bring to that school community, decisions are made on your behalf. So to me, that's piece one. And then part two is, within that larger school community, how are music educators working together to create a web of consistent and equitable curriculum, showing that we're viable, showing that we're not only sustainable, but we're looking at areas like technology, and we're thinking about what's relevant to students and what access means and how we're redefining how kids can create through music at home, at school, in between the two, with others. And so for me, it always comes back to, how is that teacher taking charge of that classroom and that curriculum? How are they growing professionally to stay attuned to what's happening nationally, but also what's happening with kids, what they're really interested in? Kids are huge consumers of music, and they're consuming music in ways today that never occurred because we didn't have the access to the internet when I was a kid. My daughter watching Orla Gartland in Ireland, who she adores as this great singer-songwriter, and how they're making these connections. It's redefining how we are able to teach, but we have to be willing to redefine a bit how we teach also. That's what's critical.
So the advocacy has to start from the professional development, from your engagement, from pushing into other education settings, constantly demonstrating the value with data, with other things.
We have to be proactive. Exactly what Frank said. If we are not proactive, and it's tough day to day, if you're a new teacher or you're an emerging teacher and you're just in the field and you're overwhelmed to begin with, how can we reach out to those teachers and empower them to say, you know, I can do this, and I need to think big, and I need to be proactive, because if I'm not, we're going to fall behind.
So Frank, do you think that if more teachers sort of got into this groove and they were supported by communities and there was kind of more action, that we maybe could move the needle?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it comes right from the core of education. In other words, if we want to be called core education, we got to act, walk, talk, do like core.
And not only the core of education, but the core of the community. And what community, one of the great things we did at University of the Arts was ethnography study, and to look at what is happening at the bars in your community. What are your kids' parents listening to? What are your kids exposed to in the home? So what can you bring in that's going to engage them and hook them and make the music classroom look like something that they're familiar with and comfortable with? And getting them where we want them is never a struggle. Getting a kid who comes in whatever their interest is into the All-City in a couple of years, I mean, that's our department's responsibility, to build that scaffolding, to have that general music exposure, to have that middle school really intensive to get the kids hooked, and then high school is where we really specialize them. And we have kids that, you know, in addition to the All-City, kids that are performing around the city and going on tours and playing in background bands. And again, it all goes back to that rich cultural city that Virginia mentioned a few times. And so we have to really be responsible to have something for every one of those single kids, and that puts the onus on us understanding. And really, I mean, for me, I bear the responsibility of making sure I'm out and communicating with the education programs, and so that when people are coming in to apply for a job, I know exactly what they went through, and if a program doesn't have something, I know exactly what I need to support them with right from the jump, and which mentors to put them with, so that they go see that person. I just hired a new percussion teacher and said, you need to go see Jag, who he knew, and you need to go see another teacher who's doing some marching stuff, and those are your mentors for the next 2 months, and then we'll talk. So it's really, you know, it's scaffolded, the responsibility, but it also, you know, falls to all of us.
Virginia, I'm dying to hear your answer to that question about moving the needle in terms of is the subject marginalized, or is it, have we advanced our place in the curriculum?
I feel that we've moved. Yes, yes, I feel encouraged, because, well, one story is in May, towards the end of May, the hottest day of the year, about 100 degrees, a full orchestra outside of the school district building playing. The kids, the students want music. So that's the loudest message. Is the kids, they've had great teaching, and they feel that this is a right, that they deserve to have this program going on. And then with the stronger community partnership with all the music organizations coming together. Last year, the music organizations all came together and put on a joint concert. So that to me, that was just outstanding, phenomenal. And then the support with all the universities in supporting our teachers. I feel that we're starting to move that needle we are core curriculum, but until we're a tested subject, we're always sort of in that gray zone. But I want to say this, that when the threat of losing 66 instrumental itinerant music teachers and athletics, who was at the front of the line in the rallies? The music people. Every time, and they say, the arts advocates, they can rally in a heartbeat because they're so used to being out there in front and promoting and feeling so passionate, just like me, of how every child deserves music. So they were out there, we're in the front line, and because we were in the front line in Harrisburg, we're in the front line going to City Hall, music saved athletics. That's what
Right. Well, we hear, if you can hear anything in the background, that is the Martin Luther King High drum line, which is actually going to drum us out into the parking lot to see the John Lennon Educational Tour Bus. But before we close, and I can kind of wrap up this tour of our Support Music Community Forums, any final thoughts from any of you in terms of what keeps you inspired, what keeps you sort of, you know, putting it forward every day? Jason, love to hear from you.
Talking back to the advocating that occurred towards the end of the year last year when we found out that we're going to lose our jobs, we have such a strong family of music teachers in the district, and all 66 of us, we look out for each other, we help each other out. There's a whole email chain where we're talking about how to better advocate when they cut our positions. But what we did was we talked to our students about what was happening, and we told them, you know, my position just got cut, and next year you guys aren't going to have instrumental music anymore. And I had this one student in particular at Lincoln High School. His name is Michael. He's an amazing student, and he comes from such a difficult family, and just seeing how he's changed over the years has been my inspiration for at least the past 3 years. I've been able to see him, you know, coming into Lincoln High School as a goofy freshman. He gets in a lot of trouble, and after getting to know him, being able to teach him percussion and being able to have conversations with him on how to turn his life around, and taking the things that we learn in drum lessons and applying that to the rest of his life. So whether that's, you know, applying your dedication, your hard work, your effort, your whatever life skills that we're learning in music class, applying that to all parts of his life has been my inspiration. And at the end of the year, I asked him to write a letter, because he said, Mr. Chung, how can I speak out? I mean, I feel like such a small person. I'm at Lincoln High School, how can I let the people know? So I had him write this letter to the school district, and I just want to share it with you. It says, Dear Dr. Height and SRC, in my life, music plays a very important role. It's my everyday escape from issues at home. My name is Michael, and I attend Abraham Lincoln High School, which you know is not the best high school out there, and I pretty much hate it. I don't feel safe half the time, and most days I have zero motivation to get up from bed and go to school, but not on Fridays. Fridays is the day my percussion teacher comes in for lessons. I love playing the drums. I constantly spend hours every day practicing and getting better. To lose that would be like losing every important part of not only my school, but my life also. Please reconsider your decision. Sincerely, Michael. So here we have a student who, it's almost impossible getting him to be motivated to write an essay for English class or to do his homework in math class. But I mean, he volunteered, he said, I want to write a letter. And I just thought that was an incredible thing to share with you all.
It's an incredible thing to share, and thank you. And I don't think it says it better.
Yeah.
Right? I think it kind of wraps up everything that we're hoping to do, both as a gifted teacher, as an important legislator, leader of the school, someone who's training teachers, someone who carries on the tradition of the great music in Philadelphia, and a wonderful partner and supporter. And I thank you all for being part of the 5th Support Music Community Forum. We're going to let our, we're going to let our drum line, I've lost my voice. After 5 cities, I finally lost my voice. We'll let our drum line take us out. Keep music education strong. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.